Eddie, Carl Rogers is stuck in traffic. I guess I probably shouldn't be announcing that since I'm on transportation, but I told him I'd send somebody out on a double bicycle. We'll bring him on in here pretty quick. But
send the brain train.
yeah, we got a lot of opportunities out there. But anyway, he asked us to go ahead and start, and he apologizes, and he will be coming in just a few minutes. So if you will, if you don't mind, if you'd let us start with the Ports Authority. I know we're not going right down the agenda, but if you don't mind, just come up and make your presentations. If anybody has any questions, please just let us know, and appreciate everybody being here and everybody's patience. So.
Well, thanks for letting us come today. You know, we actually don't have anything in the big budget. We do have a small item in the amended budget, but so we're glad to be here, and we appreciate the opportunity to tell you a little bit about what we're doing. The calendar year '06 stats came in, and the national rankings showed that the Port of Savannah is now the second largest port on the East Coast, surpassing both Charleston and Virginia, second only to New York, New Jersey. And also in Brunswick, we have good news. The auto port in Brunswick is now the sixth largest auto port in the nation. And those rankings brought both Savannah and Brunswick up over the year. And that's a result of the support that the legislature has given us over the years, allowing us to expand our facilities. The deepening in Brunswick is almost complete, and that's been a major 6-year project that you all have funded. And the new container facility in Savannah, CB8, that you've heard a lot about over the last 3 or 4 years, has also allowed us to increase our economic impact. Some of the rippling effects we've seen just recently throughout Georgia. In Bibb County, for example, there's several new distribution centers that have opened that are directly tied to the port. In Metro Atlanta, the new stat shows that Metro Atlanta is now the second largest region in the country that's building new distribution centers that are port related. So there's a lot of new growth in Metro Atlanta as a result of the port. In North Georgia, we're seeing a lot of opportunities in poultry, where the soaring trade with China in Georgia poultry is great to watch, especially chicken paws. The Chinese have a great love of chicken paws, and as you know, Americans aren't real fond of them. So chicken paws are big in China. And in Chatham County, we have 4 million. If you're ever in China and you see something at the bottom of your soup bowl, there's a good chance it's a Georgia chicken paw. But anyway, in Chatham County, we have 4 million square feet of distribution centers coming online, and in Glenn County, new construction is ongoing with the booming export markets in autos and ethanol-related fuel. Anyway, thanks a lot. I would mention in the amended budget, the governor did allow us to, or has requested that we that you all include $16.8 million in bond forgiveness. $16 million of that will be to purchase 2 new Superpost Panamax cranes for the Port of Savannah. Those are the largest cranes in the world, and they are needed to accommodate the larger vessels that are coming plying through both the Suez and Panama canals. These cranes are vital to keeping us up to date with the most recent and larger vessels. The $800,000 amount in forgiveness is for the Savannah Harbor expansion project, which you'll hear a lot more in the coming years about. It's called the SHEP, and the SHEP is a major infrastructure project that is required to deepen the Savannah Harbor from 42 to 48 feet. This year, we only are in need of $800,000 to finish the study, but in the coming years, that amount will grow. Just to let you know, all of our competitors are now up to that either 40, 46, 48, and 50 feet. And as soon as the Panama Canal is finished deepened, we will have to have that come online. So we're moving forward with the federal government. In fact, we had good news yesterday. The Bush administration put in some harbor deepening funds for us, both for Brunswick and Savannah. So, but this year it's to finish the study at $800,000. Again, on behalf of the Georgia Ports Authority, I want to thank you for letting us come and talk about the amended budget, even though we know that that's not what you're here to talk about today.
Let me ask you something. Could you talk a little bit about the security of the ports, Homeland Security? I know the Agriculture Department is asking for more funding because of that, and I think that's very important. Could you expand on that a little bit?
Yes, sir. 9/11 was a big wake-up call for the Georgia Ports Authority, as it was for the rest of the nation. We immediately went to work and began building our infrastructure up through. Since that time, we've doubled our police force. We've increased all the fencing and lighting, installed cameras, and work very closely with the federal government to ensure port security. The thing that folks don't understand a lot about in the port environment, Homeland Security, and I'm sure the Commissioner knows about this much more than I do, is the Homeland Security is a shared responsibility on ports. The Georgia Ports Authority is responsible for the outlying areas, for the vicinity of the terminal, and we're responsible for the gates. When the cargo is on the vessel and coming up the river and deposited onto the terminal, that is the Coast Guard's responsibility. But once that container arrives in Georgia, then there are a number of different various agencies that come in contact with it, the Department of Agriculture, USDA, as well as Customs and Border Patrol, who is responsible for screening the containers. Anyway, that is the shared nature of it. But in recent years, we have enjoyed great federal support from the port security loans. The last 2 years, we've received nothing. This year, we expect that to change. Because both of our United States senators have weighed in. And the best news is the radiation portal monitors have just been finished installed in Savannah, which means every container leaving Savannah is now screened for radiation. Yeah.
That's $16 million for the two cranes.
Yes,
Are those two cranes on order or on site, or where are we with those?
We have begun the ordering process and waiting on your instruction to be able to actually order the cranes.
Okay. And then the $800,000, that's a study for deepening the harbor. What's the projected timeline on that, of when that study will be complete and when you'll actually need to start construction on that?
Right. Now, the study is actually being done by the Army Corps of Engineers, so I always like to defer to them, but according to their schedule, all of the studies are supposed to be completed later this year. At that point, it goes into public comment, and then it will be required that we have sign-off from several different federal agencies to go ahead with the deepening. Right now, what we're studying is the different depths of that we want to go. It could be 42, 44, 46, 48. And so that's part of the issue. But we hope by the end of this year we'll be in construction mode.
Okay. All right. Any other questions by anybody on the committee? All right. We
All right.
certainly appreciate your presentation, and
Okay.
keep us informed.
Okay, thank you
And
very
keep
much.
up the work. Good work. Thank you. Commissioner, would you like to go next? Commissioner Stewart. All right, come up, Commissioner, and talk to us a little bit about economic development and give us some more great news, maybe.
Mr. Chairman, committee, we do have a lot of good news. There's a lot of activity going on right now in economic development, for sure. I think the purpose today is to spend a little time on the 08 budget. Is that correct? We have a few changes, and you have your tracking sheets, I take it, there on the 08 budget. We have a few changes that are being recommended in the governor's budget that I'll be glad to address. Some of those, I think, is a pass-through in there is related to HERDI, and you'll hear more from Bill Brundage regarding HERDI shortly, I'm sure. And there's another few minor items. The most significant one, however, is the amount of $5,100,000, which is dedicated to funding the governor's Global Georgia Initiative. The majority of that is for marketing funds, which would include some trade mission seminars, as well as the major thrust, and that's advertising for the state of Georgia. And then the smaller portion of that relates to people. We originally teed up 7 people, and out of the governor's budget process, it's now to 5, which is fine. We can make the mission happen with that, as well as included in that is some office operation money, principally related, of course, to our expansion in Asia, but overall it relates to the Global Georgia Initiative.
Commissioner, are these 5 people, are they going to be in offices in Asia, around the world, or will you have additional people here in your office here in the States and there too?
No, they'll be in offices here. We have one person that will be a contractor that'll be in Asia that we know of now, and potentially one other as we explore where we go in India, assuming that we end up opening an office there. Then we'd end up having a contractor. We like principally to deal with contractors. It gives us a lot more flexibility, and we've gotten very good results with our contractors. But the full-time employees would be here.
Here. And I see you have Canada too, and of course we've probably already done some business with Canada in the past, but going to try to give an extra effort in the Canadian area.
Absolutely. We had the Canadian ambassador in town this week. Canada is clearly our largest trading partner now, both import as well as export, and we give a lot of attention to Canada. And as you think about the Global Georgia Initiative in general, it includes an increased emphasis on Canada. There's some emphasis that we'll place, honestly, even within the United States. There's a lot of companies that are moving out of California right now, and so we're going to put some emphasis on California, trying to be on the receiving end of some of those changes. But the rest of the thrust, or most of the rest of the thrust, will end up being in Asia. We continue to have a very strong office in our offices in Europe. We're going to support those with our existing budget.
And China as well. You have strong offices over in China already.
We're in the process of getting government permissions now to open the office in China. We don't anticipate any problems with that, and our plan is to open that office here in the first quarter of this year. So we should have it done in March. That's the plan, assuming we don't have any problems.
Right.
Chinese New Year comes up towards the end of February, and it slows things down a bit in China, but we expect to still get it done no later than the end of March.
Okay. Okay, let's see. Question.
Thank you. Mr. Commissioner, I know that some other state agencies are looking at expanding globally, which I think is a good thing. At the end of the day, would it be better for us to combine the agencies overseas in one area, one office, versus each different agency having their own separate office overseas?
Absolutely. And Commissioner Irvin and I have had that discussion because they have a strong interest, of course, from an export standpoint overseas. And any offices we have, it makes sense to combine wherever possible. And in fact, I'm going to be meeting with some people from UGA, Michael Adams and Arnett Mace, in about 2 weeks, and looking to join with them in any expansion we do as related to India. One other thing we're doing you may find of interest is that one of our stops on the next trip is to look at what's considered the best practice model that the state of Maryland has in place for their foreign offices. And they not only combine other state agencies, but they have public-private partnerships put in place where they have companies that have space within their office from their home state. And we're looking at that as a model for us going forward. So we'll take it even to the next step.
Thank you.
Anybody else have? we don't have Kia 2 coming anytime soon, do we? I mean, you know, it's like
We hope so.
yeah, well, we hope so too. I'll tell you what. Hold on just a minute. I think somebody just walked in, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman, just for the record, he did a great job while you were out in traffic. He...
Go ahead, Commissioner.
He just wrapped
Are you through?
Thank you so much for your time.
Would you mind going back over it for me?
Yeah.
Be glad to.
Yeah.
I don't have any questions. Anybody else?
No, he talked about the 5.1.
Oh, okay.
The global
What page are we on?
attack. 7. That's the main thrust. Is that one?
Okay.
They asked for 7 employees and ended up with 5.
Okay. Anybody else have any questions?
Just ask.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Who else have you had? Everybody done. There's Commissioner.
30.
Who?
30.
Okay.
Haven't
Yeah.
done it yet.
Where are they? Hardy Foundation. There he is. Come on up, sir.
I never can remember that young guy's name on the Port Authority.
Which one is it?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Thanks for the opportunity to meet with you all.
Why don't you tell everybody who you are and that?
I'm Bill Brundage. I'm president of the Hurdy Advanced Materials Development Center based in Savannah. We lease property from the Georgia Ports Authority. The Hurdy Foundation, it was the Hurdy Foundation prior to the last year, and it had been sitting basically dormant for the last decade in the state, and a number of business people realized it represented a significant economic development tool for Georgia. So a business plan was developed and implemented 19 months ago. Last year, you all and the governor provided Hurdy with $600,000 for renovation and upgrade of some of the equipment and facilities at Hurdy. And moreover, you helped us change some of our legislation. We now report administratively through the Department of Economic Development, which has developed into a very good relationship. We stay pretty close to them, and it is really where Hurdy belongs. Some of the things we've gotten into, we've increased business that first year by almost $1 million. We found business all over the world. We're working with a number of European firms. We're already getting into recruitment, which we had not counted on because of the development capabilities that Hurdy does with manufacturers. We show them if they can manufacture something. We do scale up, and we show them the economics of it and help them innovate and come up with new product lines. And we found that there are companies, especially in Europe and the U.S., are looking for this capability, and they want to locate their manufacturing in an area that has these development capabilities. The handout that I gave you shows the budget request for the fiscal 2008. The green line shows the request that Hurdy has with the state. In the governor's budget, he had recommended $630,000 for us, and we would like to, if possible, receive more money than that. We did request $4.7 million. This shows you in the left-hand column the legacy operations, what we're asking for, and then the advanced materials unit and the accelerated business innovation unit, and repairs and upgrades, all totaling $4.75 million. The second page shows the equipment and repair that we're requesting. Half of that money about would go into repair and renovation. The third page will show you what we're asking for in the two units, the accelerated business innovation. What that is, it's materials design and product design. This is through our partnership with Georgia Tech and the Savannah College of Art and Design in industry, where we help them design new products and do the materials design and creation of the product itself. Advanced Materials, we're working with a number of Georgia firms in the composites world and shipbuilding and aviation. There will be a good bit of private money invested with that as well. The next page gives you a summary of all of this, and probably more importantly, the last page, you'll see our pro forma. And on the right-hand column, the yellow column, the year 2012, we believe we can be self-supporting by then. Because of what Hurdy does, the way it does business with manufacturers, they have to pay for us doing the scale-up work and for the product development and economics involved. And we are able, if we can get the building in shape and get enough money to expand our capabilities to bring in more business, within 5 years Hurdy should be self-supporting. Moreover, it would be bringing in enough revenue for expansion and build additional facilities, hire more needed engineers, and purchase the equipment that is required to do this work.
Doctor, where are you in this budget document?
The last page.
I know, but tracking sheet. Do you know what page?
Oh, well, yeah, we're with the 630,000. I don't know what page is that on.
Page 7. Okay.
The 630,000.
Yeah, I see it. That's it. Okay. Okay, Representative Roberts.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm new to this subcommittee. I've been on a different subcommittee in the past, and if you would, could you give me some brief history? I mean, I'm not as familiar, I guess, with your company as I should be, but from a private standpoint versus public dollars, could you give me a little history there?
Yeah. Hurdy was created in 1938 by the state of Georgia in honor of Dr. Charles Hurdy. He's the father of the paper industry in the southeast. He showed how you could create paper out of the pine trees in the southeastern U.S. He passed away in 38. The state created the foundation, and over the decades it has worked with the pulp and paper industry. That industry in the last few years, as you know, has been coming down, so Hurdy's been doing more and more in other materials. But a lot of states have invested a great deal of money in what we call the new economy, billions of dollars, and building things like Hurdy. And Georgia created this thing back in the 1930s. But we work with Georgia manufacturers and other manufacturers to help them do scale-up work to go from the laboratory into a plant and to a pilot plant to show them if something can be manufactured and what the economics might be. If a company does this by themselves, they've got to build a building, buy the equipment, hire the people. So rather than do that, it's more cost-effective to come to us. But we are a state-owned corporation. The board's appointed by the governor, and it's a state economic development entity.
Another question, Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead.
So, if I understand you correctly, it's a state-owned corporation, and the employees are state employees?
You're right.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
We're not under the merit system, but we're still state employees. We have to go by all the rules and regulations of the public employees.
Doctor, you said you had asked the OPB and the governor for how much this year?
$4.75 million.
Okay. Any further questions? Okay. Thank you, sir. Thank you for being here. Anybody else want to say anything for the Hurdy Foundation? Is that it, Doctor? Okay. Tommy Irvin, you want to go? I picked up one of your campaign signs last night in Hall County at 8 o'clock last night, Commissioner. I will. I got it in the back of my truck. I brought it to you, so.
I didn't think you was going to need it again. I think
I can put mine on top.
I'm
of
still
it.
hobbling, but I'm getting around a little better than I did. Thank you for allowing us to be before you this morning. I'm here to make things pretty simple to you. If you read the tracking sheet, page 4, the governor's recommended 8 positions to our department. I think I told you in the previous meeting that we have about 140 authorized but vacant positions because they're not funded. This will help us a little. We could ask you for a lot more, but we're going to go with what we've asked the governor to recommend, and we think we can strongly justify this 8 additional funded positions that we need desperately in the department. The only thing that's not on the sheet is bonding for the Atlanta market. As you know, that market's over 50 years old and it needs renovation, needs expansion. We're asking for $2 million to be put in bond funds. We're now returning into the state treasurer $6.5 million a year. As we've told you in the past, any money that's spent out of that $2 million to expand will be added to the rent to recapitalize that back over a period of 10 years. We think it's a good investment. The Atlanta market has over 3,000 employees. It's a huge generation to our economy and something that is considered the jewel of markets in the nation. So I'll try to answer any questions you might have.
Representative Roberts.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Commissioner, you've got to move some of your testing facilities out of Atlanta.
That's correct.
And we're looking at a possibility of moving them down south.
That's correct.
The funding that's there for the study, could you explain that a little bit?
Well, you funded last year some money to do a study, and we have that in hand now. We found out that the governor's office is interested in getting a lot of business out of the Atlanta area and moving into South Georgia, and we agree with him. We have 3 divisions or sections of our department. The motor fuels is desperate in need of more room and more modern equipment. It's now at Forest Park. That would be one that we would move to, probably to Tifton. I know you're interested there, and we have the same interest. We have property there that we could locate on. Another would be our weights and measures laboratory. It has to be in a place that's where they will not be disturbed by too much traffic and too much like the Atlanta airport is adding new runways, and it's right under their drift in, and so it needs to be moved because of the calibration of weights and measures equipment. It could be moved there. Our analytical laboratory and over in the ag building. That building was never built for a laboratory, but it's had a laboratory there ever since it was built 50 years ago. It could be located in South Georgia, in Tifton. That will not be, that capital outlay will not be in my budget, it'll be put in somebody else's budget. We'll pay rent when the time comes. We think it's probably 2 years away. We say the sooner the better. We think you'd be very pleased with that move.
Another question, Mr. Chairman. Go ahead. Mr. Commissioner, in the funds, was $150,000? Wasn't that what we?
That's correct.
And that's for the planning, more or less.
Planning.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Commissioner.
One other thing I would like to mention, since the community development mentioned about offices in Asia, we're not asking for it this year unless you see the wisdom of allowing us to have a similar situation staged with the Department of Community Development. But we would have the same system, contract, to sell our chicken and our other products in that part of the world. We think it's an expanded market. We think a presence over there would be very important to agriculture in Georgia. And even though we didn't have it in our original request, if you saw the wisdom to add it, we think it would be very timely. But if you don't add it this year, it'll be in our request next year.
I appreciate that. And that was my question earlier. So are you going to be in conversations with the commissioner, with the Department of Economic Development about maybe being able to combine those offices and expand our markets?
We've already been in conversation. We're in total agreement. I think like you'd like to see it done.
Yes, sir.
It'll work real good. We can accommodate each other. They're interested in getting investment dollars here. We're interested in selling our product and having that money to come back through sales of our products that we produce in the state of Georgia. And chicken's just a small part of it, because we think there's a great opportunity. That's a heavy smoking area of the country. I know tobacco is very unpopular, but we still grow a lot in Georgia, and we're going to be seeing if we can make some direct contact with that market over there for that product that's grown in one of the more depressed areas of our state, South Georgia.
Thank you, Mr. Commissioner. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir. Commissioner, on advertising, I don't know. I'm asking because I'm trying to learn. On advertising products overseas, and you mentioned chicken, you work with X company here in Georgia, XYZ company, and promote an advertising, a marketing plan for overseas. And
our staff will help them locate people who are potential buyers of our product. And that's a big country. It's going to have a huge impact on us in the future. I think I've made a statement maybe to you last time. If we're going to buy our underwear over there, I want to make it out of Georgia cotton.
Maybe some of those chicken feet or something like that. Anyway, yeah, don't we sell a lot of chicken to Russia? Does Russia buy a lot of chicken?
It's been a market. We serve that market out of our office in Brussels. We have an office in Brussels, and Russia's covered by that office.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner, y'all had a bill on the House floor Friday dealing with poultry dealers and brokers. And Dr. Maddox carried the bill for you, and I couldn't understand him, and I voted against the bill. Can you tell me what that bill actually is for?
What that bill was to try to repeal some laws that we have on our books that's ineffective today.
I thought we were raising the fees. I thought we were giving you the authority to do rules and regs and raise the fees from $5 that had been on the books for 50 years.
We do not plan to raise those fees. That was the committee wanted to put that on the bill. I didn't necessarily think it was a good idea, but I did not oppose it because there's a strong feeling that sometime in the future we might need to get into fees for service. And I think I've told you repeatedly, as long as I'm your commissioner, I expect to be at least 4 more years, we'll never implement fee for service without first getting the endorsement of this committee and the rank and file members of the General Assembly by legislative action.
Was that something
that we should get in without you getting that path with us?
Was that something y'all brought to the Ag Committee?
We brought the bill just to do away with the $5 fee because it costs more to collect it than we actually collecting fees.
Okay. So tell me what you repealed then. Tell me what you did.
Lee's not here, is she? You got that information? Got most of this memory, but I'll try to. Can we give him? Best I remember, we only collect something like $30 or $40 a year out of that fee. And
really?
Just wiping it off.
You wiped it off, but it also gives you the right to promulgate rules and regs.
If in the event in the future we need to get into fee for services, as I mentioned,
then you can do the
which
fee.
I'm not advocating today, and I commit to you, we'll never implement any fee for services without the approval of the General Assembly of Georgia.
But it gives you the right to do it without statute now, right?
I don't think we can do anything without your approval. When it deals with money, because you got to do the appropriation. We can't do that. Anything we collect goes into state treasury. We got to come to you and get you to appropriate it back out.
Well, I knew that, but
we could not implement it without the approval of the General Assembly of Georgia.
I know it'd been on the books for 50 years. Why are we just coming now, 50 years later, to make these changes? Why didn't we do it 40 years ago?
Well, I thought it was very timely to repeal some laws rather than ask you to create a bunch of laws. We've got several bills coming through dealing with other functions of the department. We think it's good business to wipe laws off is no longer necessary.
I couldn't understand Dr. Maddox, so that's the reason I probably voted against it. So.
Well, Dr. Maddox has been a good friend of ours. So.
Right. But he's a veterinarian. He's not a poultry dealer or broker or anything like that, right?
He's a good veterinarian, but he's been retired for a few years.
Yeah. Okay. on line 14.5, the poultry veterinary diagnostic labs, I should say 15.1.
That was a piece of equipment that was bought in last year's budget.
Yeah.
And since it was one item, and somehow it got capitalized, so they tried striking it out.
So it's just money they didn't need?
Money they didn't need because
okay.
you funded it last year. And that equipment, I think you helped get that money put in the budget,
I
if I
did.
remember correctly.
Yes, sir. I did. Okay. Any other questions? Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you very much. If you need any additional information, let us know.
Okay, thank you. Well, I couldn't understand what it was. Commissioner Baker, you want to go ahead and go? Because you're in the midst of hearings right now, I guess, aren't you?
Actually, I'm done, so
Are you? Okay.
I can do this quickly if y'all would like to. With me today is Commissioner Chuck Eaton and Ms. Flanagan, our Executive Director, is here, and Mr. James Young, our Budget Director, is here too, in case I need some help. Ms. Flanagan passed out to you just a summary of our budget request for fiscal year 2008. The governor's recommendations are that we receive an increase of $618,882 for increases to salaries, benefits for existing employees. He's also approved the hiring of 2 pipeline inspectors for the commission. Our GUFPA pipeline inspectors have contributed $481,388 in fines and penalties to the state treasury. The governor's also approved recommendation in our GBA rent that we need to send them another $54,000 for an increase in rent, and also allow us additional $25,000 to be used for collection purposes for the fines and penalties that have been imposed pursuant to the Georgia Underground Facilities Protection Act laws. That the governor's proposed recommendations total $806,325. We had some other recommendations that were not approved by the governor for additional personnel. This year is going to be a busy year for us, Georgia Power-wise. We just got done with a fuel cost case. We just had a decision in that this morning. We are going to get ready for an IRP, Integrated Resource Plan, dealing with their proposal for construction of 2 new nuclear units at Plant Vogtle. That's a major undertaking. And then we've got a planned rate case with Georgia Power this summer. That's in addition to other rate proceedings that we've got for Atmos Energy, for Atlanta Gas Light Company. So we are going to have a busy year at the Commission. The governor's recommendations for the 2 new pipeline inspectors, basically we're trying to get up to meet federal guidelines on how many safety inspectors we're supposed to have in the state of Georgia. And essentially our personnel in pipeline safety, we're sort of surrogates for the federal government. We get 50% of our funding from the federal government for that department. The other half comes from you at the state of Georgia. We are hoping that Congress will be passing in the future a bill to increase their share of federal funding up to 80%. And if that goes through, there will be an increase of 5% in federal funding for the next 6 years, but that has not been approved as yet. We were looking for some additional positions for our energy section due to the increased work we're going to be having with the rate proceedings and with the IRP proceedings for Plant Vogtle. We were looking for some additional transportation enforcement personnel. When we regained the authority to get back into the regulation of limousines, passenger buses, non-consensual towing, and household good movers, there were 7 personnel back at the old Department of Motor Vehicles who did that work. We got 2 of those folks in the breakup of the department, and we've been trying to get a few positions to make us a more effective agency. We can do the work, we can get the permits out, we can do the certification, but then if you want to go beyond that and get into actual, aggressive enforcement, or dealing with consumer issues, we're sort of shorthanded in the transportation area just because of the fact that we are regulating or have responsibility for a few thousand companies, but we just don't have the folks to cover the state of Georgia. So that was a proposal. Also for our GUFBA, we were looking for 3 new positions for our GUFBA folks that were not included in the governor's recommendation. If anyone has any questions at this time, I'd be happy to try to answer the questions. Anybody has one?
Commissioner, you mentioned the Fed funds. When do you get the Fed funds, and for what issue?
We
273, 311.
I don't know, Mr. Youngs. When do we get the money? When do we actually get? Is there a particular date? Reimbursable basis. So it's on our pipeline safety inspectors.
I got you.
So we get a lot of their expenses are covered on a 50-50 basis for the operation that they do.
Okay. And you mentioned Atmos again. Is this on the hearing that was going on last year that's in an appeal process right now?
No, this would be a new proceeding, a new rate proceeding.
What is it for?
It'd be a rate case. It's scheduled for a rate case. It's been a while since our last rate case with Atmos, so the 3 years have flown by. So it's time for another.
We had one last year because I was there.
Okay, well, your memory's better than mine. Was that up in Gainesville when we did it?
Yeah.
Okay.
You went to Gainesville and Columbus?
I think that was for pipeline.
I think we did not give them what they requested. That's why it went to appeal.
Yeah.
And because of the level of revenue, that they will be making another filing to try to recoup that money.
But it's in an appeal now at Fulton County Court, isn't that correct?
Right, I believe so.
Okay. Any other questions, Chairman Smith?
Mr. Baker, on the budget request on the transportation enforcement for 4 new positions, how many people do you have there now?
We have, right now, I believe, 5, and one of those 2 of those people are administrative assistants. And that's covering the entire state of Georgia. So.
And in that enforcement part, there are a lot of enforcement people out there. What's the main goal? What are those people looking for?
Well, I mean, it just depends. Since we regulate, say, limousines, during prom time, we get a lot of complaints from customers who say they were overcharged. So, right after prom season, or we get complaints in. If we see a pattern of any particular company that seems to have a series, we try to go for the companies or entities that we get multiple complaints on. We don't have the resources to go after and follow every single complaint. So we're looking for household good mover who's getting multiple complaints filed against them. We're looking for a limousine company that's had multiple complaints filed against them, and then we will target our limited personnel resources to go out there and do the field investigation or do a field audit if necessary. And that's what we've been trying to do. We've been trying to hit the worst offenders. We're ignoring a lot because of the fact we just don't have the ability to cover everything. In addition to just the regular administrative filings that need to be taken care of and processed as part of just the ordinary day in, day out business.
Yeah, I guess that was my next question is people in the moving business and local, not so much out of state, but just local movers in the home products, furniture and that nature. I had a couple of comments from people. So.
Well, we've been picking up enforcement. We've identified, we've had a couple of what we call Rule NISA or show cause hearings for a few of the movers that we've received multiple complaints on, and we've been able to conduct those investigations and recommend fines or penalties for some of them. So we will do as much as we have some really good people in that department, and they really work. They're examples of what state employees should be for a couple of them, and they go above and beyond the call of duty as far as they put in more than an 8-hour day to try to do their job. They just are just so backlogged. They're just trying to keep their head above water sometimes.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner, Georgia Power rate cases, I know they have the right to file fuel cost recovery anytime they need to. And I assume we're talking about coal price increases, natural gas.
Yeah.
Is it more natural gas than it is coal? Or?
Well, actually, they burn more coal, but what seems to be driving the undercollection as far as fuel cost seems to be the increased use of natural gas, and natural gas is a little more expensive fuel to use for generation of electricity. Mm-hmm. The cheapest is nuclear. Next in line would be fossil or coal, and then natural gas is your most expensive fuel for generation of electric power. And there's been a little more use of natural gas here in the past couple of years, and on top of that, you have higher gas prices, which we've all seen at home, and coupled with that, the coal prices have also gone up.
This statute, if I remember right, has been on the books since 78 or 9.
Yes, sir.
So they file a rate case with you, and they give you a fuel cost of what natural gas should cost.
They give us a best estimate of what they think their projected fuel costs are for 6 months or 12 months. It's normally a 12-month period that we look at, a projected cycle. And, we look at it. There are parties that come in and say, we think they're overestimating the cost, or they're adding additional costs which they don't need to recover or are too high. And we try to use, our best experience and know-how to try to come as close as possible. Right now we're in an under-collected position, or the company is in an under-collected position. We're trying to basically pay down that debt and try to get as close to a zero margin as possible, but that's never occurs. You're either a little over or a little under-collected in any best case scenario.
So we've had 3 or 4 of these you've had 3 or 4 of these in the last couple of years, isn't that correct?
Well, we just had a decision this morning. That's why I wasn't here this morning. And the third fuel case has been concluded, and we think it's a fair decision. I think everybody was a little grumpy and a little bit upset with the decision, so we figure we got it probably as close to accurate as possible. So we're going to monitor it very closely, and hopefully the undercollection will be coming down steadily over the next 12 months. If it doesn't, we have another fuel cost case scheduled in 12 months from March of 2008.
Hypothetical, when natural gas someday will go down, hypothetical, do they file a fuel cost adjustment as well? Then you have a hearing, or is it automatically done?
No, we do projections. In this particular case, Georgia Power Company's projection for natural gas prices out in the future was higher than what was finally approved, and there were parties in the case that said natural gas costs are coming down. Look at what it's at the Henry Hub or the NYMEX pricing. You've seen it come down,
right.
But we're looking at long-term trends. So while the current trend for the past few months might be that natural gas prices have been trending downward, and we hope that trend continues and levels off, there's no guarantee. We were very lucky this year. We had no major hurricanes disrupting production in the Gulf of Mexico. We've had if you remember back in December, we had a couple nice 60-degree, 70-degree days out there, and that has a huge impact on demand for natural gas for heating. Same thing for the summertime. Temperature is really what drives most of everything we do here is the cost. If it's a warm summer, electricity prices are higher because of demand. If we have a nice warm winter, costs for natural gas tend to trend down as less people use natural gas for heating. That's just supply and demand.
So what you're telling me, they automatically adjust their rates down? Is that what you're saying?
Well, that's what we do. Every 6 months to 12 months, we'll take we'll come back in March, bring them back in March in 2008. We'll see if our estimate of what gas costs are was accurate or it needs to be adjusted upward or downward. So it's always tinkering with the
so the PSC
estimate.
is always monitoring that.
Yes, and now especially because of the undercollected position, we're monitoring it much closely because it's gotten rather large, and we need to bring it down.
Okay. You mentioned to me in another meeting we had, right now we only have you have one person that's monitoring the moving and storage business. Is that correct?
That is specifically assigned to that Mr. West, yes.
So he does all the complaints?
He does. He has assistants. I mean, he does have some administrative assistant, but I mean, he is the staff member who is principally responsible for our work in that area. He does a great job.
But you mentioned you needed other staff to enforce what the complaints are coming in.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. It's a large state, and like I said, we have a lot of companies that we are responsible for and trying to find the. We have over 900 certified transportation carriers that we are responsible for overseeing and regulating in the state of Georgia, and it's, when you have 5 people and 2 of them are administrative assistants, you don't really have the coverage you would like, or the flexibility to go out there and do inspections and investigations. And in fact, we're trying to work now with the State Patrol to try to get their assistance to help us with field investigations. So we're hoping that will be productive.
Anybody else have any questions?
And just one other comment, Mr. Chairman.
Sure.
We passed unanimously today an adjustment to the maximum rate tariff for household good movers, unanimous, a 25% increase on the cap. We hope that will take care of the legitimate movers who are having problems competing in the marketplace, and that will be a cap. We will unify. It's also been unified. The rate has been unified, so we don't have a metro and a non-metro tariff. It's now just one tariff based on the metro rate, and we increase the cap on that 25%. So I think we're going to hopefully that'll take care of their problems, and they're free to come back at any time if it doesn't. And we also provided for annual adjustments based on inflation. So depending on inflationary trends, they will all get automatic increases based on inflation. So I think that's a fair decision. It was unanimous by the Commission.
Good.
And we hope that will take care of the existing problems and the fact that they had not had any kind of adjustment since 2000.
Very good. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, members of the committee.
Thank you for your service. Who's next? You need to? Okay, Community Affairs.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Good to see y'all. Appreciate your service. I'm going to be on page, I think it's 5 and 6 of the tracking document. Mr. Chairman, our 08 budget really does not reflect very many changes from the 07. I'm going to look at just 3, and of course, if you've got questions on any of the other, we'll be delighted to entertain those. But we're going to look at on coordinated planning 16.3.1, regional services 16.8.1, and state economic development 16.13.1. I know Acting Director Greg Mason is here with GFA if you have a question there. So if you look at 16.3.1, this is for our census count, to be sure we have an accurate census count. If y'all remember, we added, I think on our amended budget, some dollars, and this will finish that out. Rick, I think that's an 18-month, Phil. Is that 18 months? So that will, and y'all know how important that is because that's our numbers for everything that we do, including congressional reapportionment. So that will allow for 2 time-limited positions. That's 16.3.1. Under regional services on 16.8, that is a follow-through. Donnie Smith, who's the ag liaison, is now attached to our office down in Tifton, and that will allow for the administrative assistance, some travel, and other administrative costs there. On 16.13.1, that deals with our base closings. As y'all know, that's the BRAC process, and Those are REBA dollars, but those will allow the different local redevelopment authorities to match the federal dollars, and that's $330,160. The other changes you'll see deal with the salary, 3% salary increase, administrative changes, streamlining the department, and moving some positions from one division to another.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Questions? Rural water, 1614.1.
Yes, sir.
Can you explain?
Greg, you want to? Once again, this is Greg Mason, our acting director. I think y'all know about GFA, how important that is to our
Sure.
state. So, Greg.
Sure. Thank you. Your question, sir?
Looks like it's a $150,000 cut.
That's correct.
Can you tell me why?
Georgia Rural Water provides, as you know, a series of services.
Right.
Some of which is what we call circuit rider, or which we call inspection, water audits, what have you. In fiscal year 2006, they received $200,000, and then in 2007 they received $350,000. This is being brought back down to that $200,000 threshold.
Okay. Bobby?
I'm not speaking actually to you because I believe it's not your job to defend that, but I understand that pass through. But I was on the first board of directors of Georgia Rural Water in 1979. And they do a terrific job for us rural communities out there. They have to train every
water operator. You're right.
They have to be. They have so many times a year, and you get a little town in my area that says I've got a problem. They all of a sudden have got 5 experts in there to fix that problem, and it really provides a good service to rural.
That's correct. Well, they go beyond some of the things that's within their contract. They do smoke testing, and as you say, they're very responsive, so they provide a good value to the state. I agree.
So I guess the question is, why are we cutting the money? If what Representative Hanner was just saying and what you said, that they do a great job, why are we cutting them from $350 back to $200?
Well, I know they receive money through GFA from some of our federal sources, and they receive money through Department of Natural Resources and just a little through Department of Human Resources. They will do what they have to do, whatever amount they get.
Well, I guess, Mr. Chairman, I guess there again, my question is, today with the problems that we're facing in the state when it comes to our water issues and all, I mean, I feel like it's important that we keep these individuals out there, and I understand, but you just said they would do with whatever they're given. I guess my question there again is, they were at $350,000, now we're at $200,000. Why are we cutting that $150,000?
Well, this is an attempt more to bring them in line to what the 2006 amount that they received, again, a couple of years ago. The $350 was in 2007, what they're operating with now.
But they were operating with $350,000 last year, and we're now cutting them back. I mean, if their cost went down, I mean, I guess there again, and I'm not opposed to making cuts in the budget. I'm just trying to get in my head of why we're taking the $150,000 away from them.
Again, it's more of an attempt to sort of lower the base and bring them in line. I think before 2006, they had 150,000 and 125, so it's crept up. It's been fluid to some degree.
Okay.
Okay. Representative Hanner?
Correct me if I'm wrong. The cut did not come from you. I mean, you did not recommend cutting.
Oh, that's correct, sir.
That's right. So I mean, it's a little unfair to make you defend the cut or you anticipate the cut. But I do know, after talking to the executive director, that a cut of that much is going to lessen the services. Yeah. So.
Yeah. But again, they will do what's asked of them, what the resources
they will
that
do
they provide.
what they've got. But if you cut them, it's going to lessen the services they're able to provide. Yeah.
That's very possible.
Well, Greg, we added more money back in.
That's correct.
And the governor cut it back is what the correct answer when you say?
With our 07, I think our initial...
08. We're talking about the 08.
With the 08,
yeah.
That's correct. I mean,
okay.
It's 350, and this recommendation is 200.
All right. Any other questions for Greg? Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Mike, let me ask you something. We talked about last year the RDCs. Have we put any? I know you were meeting with the governor, and we were trying to decide, what they did, how they did it, the mission statement, the RDCs. We have, 15 RDCs or 16?
16.
16. And they've always done planning. I know I have an RDC in the area I represent, and they're asking me about it. And I see nothing in here for the RDCs this year. Is that correct?
No change. It's the continuation.
So no new planning money or anything like that?
No, sir. We are meeting. There's a commission for New Georgia task force that will be.
Oh, New Georgia's taking this apart. What are they?
On the overall service delivery strategy, which would include the RDCs.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
When will we know something about the?
It's coming together, and probably, I'd say within the next 6 months or so, we'll be working with the RDCs and striving to do what we all do it better, including all service delivery, how we deliver services to those local communities. So, yes, sir.
So there was no recommendation for any new.
No increase or no decrease. Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Any questions for Mike?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, sir.
Okay, Bill Miller, did he leave? He'll probably be back. Forestry.
That's Bill.
Oh, Bill, okay. We got Bill here. Robert? Let me get Bill here.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. I'm Bill Miller, Director of Administrative Services for the Georgia World Congress Center Authority. There are no recommendations in the FY08 budget regarding the Georgia World Congress Center. Normally we have occasion to get bond money, but there's none in the governor's recommendation, and we don't ask for operating funds. Yes, sir. If there are any questions about our operation, we'll be glad to answer those.
Any questions from anybody? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. Okay, forestry.
Good morning.
Morning.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, I'd like to address some of the concerns previously conveyed by this committee. First being on the vehicle extraction question, we have contacted Bill Phillips with the Attorney General's office trying to seek another solution as opposed to legislative change, and have asked them to provide us with an opinion regarding volunteers that may work for the GFC and towing options for volunteers that are working directly. So we're waiting on another opinion from the Attorney General's office on that. Regarding the recap or retread tire issue, we do keep records of problems that we've had. In 2004, we had 42 cases of tread coming off blowouts. In 2005, we had 46 cases. In 2006, that dropped down to 9 when we moved from central warehousing to outsourcing in the field. So that problem has dropped off a good bit. Where our greatest problems are right now, or the existing problems, are with the 1020 tires that we did not upgrade to the new industry standard in 88, 89. So we're still having some problems with retreads because of the fact that those casings are hard to find. Good casings of that age are hard to find. And then also we've looked back at the environmental cab request or question you had, and we do have 24 crawlers that could be reasonably retrofitted. The 650 crawlers at a cost of double what new cabs would cost, $22,000 a piece. as opposed to the 10 for the 22 crawlers that we have now online to purchase. Starting with the 08 request, tracking sheet page 8. We do support the governor's budget proposals here and requesting this committee support as well. To highlight the changes, of course, 25.0 through 06 are all common changes across the board regarding personal services dollars. On line 25.1, that is a request to reinsert $168,000 from the Hurdy Foundation that we were collecting through annual debt service payments. But when Hurdy Foundation transferred over to economic development, we were losing those dollars. So those are to replace those dollars. 1.2 is to provide funding to address ongoing facility maintenance needs, amount of $860,000. And I've provided you with a picture book of some of the projects that we have on that list. At your leisure, sir. 25.3.1 is a request to fund ongoing maintenance needs to ensure firefighter readiness, and that is $979,000 for ongoing repair of our equipment, everything from our crawler tractors to our transports, truck tractors.
Robert, y'all never mentioned the helicopters. You know, the former commissioner never mentioned helicopters. You haven't mentioned helicopters. And past years, we always mention helicopters. They're running okay. You still have the Hueys. They're not down. And you still have the lease helicopter, and it's running okay. And
yes, sir. Our helicopter fleet is in good shape now, thanks to previous funding. We have upgraded our old 1960 model Hueys with what we call the Super Huey package, which enables us to operate that piece of equipment, and then also have a Bell 407 that was purchased new, operating very well.
Didn't we lease that? Then you bought it? Is that what we did?
That's correct.
Okay, I thought we did.
And with the 407, it's a much more efficient machine.
Right.
Can respond a lot
How
faster.
about the problems with the Hueys? I know every time there's a Huey problem, if one goes down or mechanical, they put them down. Is that still an issue like it once was?
No, with the rebuild that we accomplished, converting that to a Super Eagle, we don't have those problems anymore. So whenever a recall or a flight notice comes down, with the new engine in there, we can keep on moving.
Okay. What's a Super Eagle? What does it do?
It's basically just a rebuild of the old Huey.
Okay.
Putting a new engine in it.
Turbocharged or?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay. Representative Roberts from South Georgia has a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Commissioner, I'd like to touch again. As we talked about in 07 amended, you talked about the equipment being on a 20-year schedule right now, as far as our crawlers and all.
Yes, sir.
I guess my question is, what would it take to move that up? I mean, 20 years is a lot as far as getting these cabs. I actually believe that you're probably one of the most important divisions in state government, especially when it comes to wildfires and all, and what it could do to the state if they get out. I guess my question back to you again is, are we giving you the funds that you need to adequately run this department? I don't ask that to a lot of people. Please understand that, but I do have that question because y'all have operated on bare bones for so many years.
Yes, sir, and I appreciate those comments regarding our service. Actually, our funding in 07 is state funding, that is less than the funding in 1998. So we were funded $34 million in 98 and 07 at $33 million. So yes, we're making ends meet. Regarding question on equipment, I failed to mention another component of the governor's proposal, and that is a $2.5 million bond package to replace firefighting equipment. That will bring us a lot closer to where we need to be. We're not at the 20-year replacement schedule on our crawler tractors yet. Looking at our existing funding levels for equipment, the projections are that in 2009 there'll be a $5 million delta difference in what we need to get our equipment up to, our crawlers up to a 20-year replacement versus the funding.
And that was in did you say 2009?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Again, we distributed these at the last meeting, but I'll pass that out again, the graph that shows that.
Rob, you're talking about the bond pack, $2.5 million. Are those 5-year or 20-year bonds?
I believe that'd be 5-year, isn't
Okay.
it, Woody, for equipment?
Can you tell me what equipment you're talking about? Just overall trucks or?
Yes, sir. That's covering everything from replacement of 25-year-old trailers, transports, tractors, and our crawlers.
Okay. All right. Any other questions? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. We're on page 10 of the tracking document. The first 4 items under common changes are common to most agencies. I won't discuss those unless you have any questions. First comment I was going to make on it is on item number 5 under 42.0. Redirect motor vehicle funds. We're asking to move $80,000 from our water resource and land use planning program to purchase 5 high mileage vehicles that have over 150,000 miles in 4 of our other programs. So it's a redirection. It's a net change of 0. We're just moving funds from one program to the next. And the only other change we have is the next item under conservation of soil and water resources, replacing other funds with state general funds. Currently, our erosion control certification program is being funded through a contract with EPD under DNR. And in the 2008 budget, we're asking for that to be a direct appropriation. OPB and the governor's office has seen fit to do that. We're asking for your concurrence of that. It's not an increase in funds, as you'll notice. It just basically moves the fund source from other funds to state funds. And those are our only 2 changes. Be glad to answer any questions that you might have, Mr. Chairman.
Brett, explain that again. You're moving, again, the $266,000.
Right.
Explain that again.
Okay. Currently, our certification program where we're training those that are involved in erosion is being funded through a contract with DNR EPD, which would be an other funds category. And now we're just asking in 2008 for that to be a direct appropriation to the agency instead of a contract.
Okay. So it's just a pass-through with DNR EPD?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes, sir. That's correct.
Okay. I don't see anybody else. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. Who else have we not met with? Anybody else that wanted to make a comment? I think that was it. John, did you, Representative Burns, did you want to make any comments to the committee?
I'm just here to observe the fine work of this committee.
Okay. Okay. Tomorrow at 10:30, we'll hear from Greta and also DOT. So, and it'll probably take about the same time. So, if no one else has anything to say, that will conclude this meeting. Thank you.